Yeah, what's up for a nightcap? Chill, you know, kick back.
Welcome to the Nightcap. It's your girl, Carolina Sanchez, and tonight we're talking microaggressions. Now, are you a victim, or do you actually do it unintentionally or intentionally? Well, we're calling you out tonight because we're going to bring light to it with a very engaging conversation.
Microaggressions people have said to me, part 1. I went to school in Arkansas, and one time I was at a frat party and this guy was hitting on me, and this is what he said. Yo, B, come here. You want a White Claw? B, listen, you know I'm not racist. Like, I love T-Pain. But honestly, like, you're cool. You are cooler than most black people. Like, you're not ghetto, you're not like them. You're so much better. Connor. Breaking news! Insulting my entire race is not how you get in my pants. Considering that I'm probably the 3rd black person you've talked to for more than 5 minutes, do we think that's a fair assessment? Guys, that's not a compliment. It's a microaggression and it's racist. Stop it.
Oh, how many people have been victim and are guilty of that? Here to discuss and unpack this are my friends Alan Sams. We've got Arquella Hargrove, an HR specialist, and my friend Ajibola Borderin. Have you guys experienced microaggressions?
Every day, all day.
Every day, all day.
Yeah. More than you want to remember.
Yeah, definitely something that becomes a part of like what you expect sometimes.
And do you find, like the lady that was on this video just now, where it's like, oh, you're different than the rest of the race. They try to give it as a compliment, and then it's actually, you know, just overt racism.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. And we like to say that they're death by 1,000 paper cuts because it happens that many times a day, and the comments are that cutting. Right? Even just based on that clip. That was cutting. It was just insensitive. Right.
Insulting. And sometimes it's not even so overt. Sometimes it's real subtle. Sometimes it's just a nod or a not making eye contact type of thing. Yes, ma'am.
And I think it's one of those things where you it can make you second guess yourself, because sometimes when it's hidden as a compliment or something small, you might want to be like, oh, I'm not sensitive, or I don't want something to affect me. But like, if it's happening and it's something that, you know, makes you feel something, sometimes you have to call it out.
And I think that's the biggest issue with microaggression, is that because it's so small, basically, because it's so micro, if you do call it out, they'll be like, oh, you're so sensitive. Like, I didn't say anything bad. I didn't say anything racist. Is that?
The excuse is always, well, I didn't think of it like that. I didn't think that would offend you. And it was like, that's the problem, because it speaks to a larger issue about how you think. Everything we do is predicated by what we think. So you doing that subconsciously, you know, tells me what you think about me.
Right. People are making assumptions. Just like if someone say, oh my gosh, you're so articulate, right? And it's like, oh, no, I meant that as a compliment. You speak so well. But again, when you're saying it to a person of color or someone in a marginalized group, it could be offensive, or saying, okay, do you not think I can talk well? What do you mean by that?
What do you mean by that?
Exactly.
And, actually, producer Hobby has this video of people addressing whether microaggression and racism is the same thing.
I'd rather overt racism than microaggressions.
No, you wouldn't.
Yes, I
no,
would.
You wouldn't. That's a
because
lie.
then I can understand like the dichotomy. I don't want to have that false sense of welcome, or walk into a place where I feel like I'm safe, and then I'm dealing with subtle racism and subtle racist jabs. Because when you react to subtle racism, everybody treats you like you're crazy. If you react to overt racism, there are people that kind of understand, oh, you called me a and I beat you up. They kind of get that. Oh, they kind of had it coming. But if you said 14 microaggressive things to me and I spaz out, they're going to be like, what's the problem? They didn't say anything that bad to you. All they said was that you speak well. Why are you so mad? Why are black people so angry? What would you rather? Would you rather know somebody fuck with you, or think somebody fuck with you and they really don't fuck with you?
Which is what you were saying earlier, Arquella, the death of 1,000 cuts.
Absolutely.
You'd rather one blunt blow as opposed to the 1,000 cuts, I assume?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's those subtle, right? And microaggressions can be intentional or unintentional, but again, it's really bringing it to the forefront. But if it keeps happening over and over, that's impactful to some people. Absolutely. And then people will say, well, what is the big deal? You know, they didn't mean anything by it. They left you off of email, or they overspoke, you know, over you in a meeting. No big deal, right? Let's get past that. But it's not. It's very offensive, and it builds up over time.
And do you
it's
guys
not
have
addressed.
classic examples of what you've experienced?
Oh yeah, I remember my first semester at Texas A&M. They were like, "Oh man, you don't play sports?"
Yeah, that's a big one.
What you? I'm not here to get an education. I'm just here to play sports. But it's because I'm black. Because I'm, you know, muscular. Like, what's? I live in the same dorm you live in. I don't live in an athletic dorm.
Yeah. Yeah, I know one thing for me is like, so I have a Nigerian name, my father's Nigerian, so a lot of times when people meet me, the first thing they want to ask is, oh, where are you from? And they automatically like get disappointed when I tell them Houston, which I think it lets me know why they asked the question. They're not asking to genuinely, you know, get to know me. They're asking because they have an expectation, and when you don't fit within that, that's kind of when the microaggressions come out, because then they're like, well, no, where are you really from? Or, you know, like it's almost like my own identity isn't valid unless it fits within like the box that they have for me.
Exactly.
And you're like, my truth is that I'm from Houston.
Exactly. Yeah, and that happens a lot. That probably happens daily. And so as we work with different groups, it's kind of like, let's bring that out. Let's bring awareness and understanding. And sometimes it's asking the question like, you know, you keep asking me where I'm from. What are you trying to get at? You know, I'm from here. I said I'm from here. It's also sometimes we are asking around to separate the intent versus the impact. And so again, bringing it, highlighting it, but then asking the person, kind of, let's talk about what you just said. And here's how it made me feel. And then really engaging them in a conversation.
Why are you shaking your head, Alan?
You're saying it nicely. Listen,
All right.
I'm gonna just ask you straight up. Did you just say that because I'm black? We gonna cut all the sugar off, and we're gonna get right to it, because I don't have time to continue to have to deal with this, especially if you're someone that I have to continue to deal with.
Yeah.
So let's just nip it.
Let's nip it. Okay, well, I want to hear more about this, but first we're going to actually head to the bar with my girl, Gloria, who's actually making an old-fashioned for me. Yay! Welcome back to the Nightcap. I'm behind the bar now with my girl, Gloria Van Zandt. Y'all may remember her. She was part of the New Year's Eve celebration on Fox 26, pouring it up at Tulum. But now you're on the show because you're going to do what with me?
Back that glass up.
You're actually preparing my favorite cocktail, the old-fashioned.
Yes.
But with a twist. I see you brought some other stuff up in here.
Yes. So we have some brown sugar, as you can see. And what makes it a little bit special, normally we use regular cane sugar for an old-fashioned. And so we're gonna use brown sugar today with a drizzle of caramel. So a little something.
It's Gloria's old-fashioned. All right, shake it on up. Well, as you've been hearing, Gloria, we've been talking about microaggressions. So as a black woman behind the bar, are you experiencing that on a nightly basis?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. It's more often than you would expect.
Really?
But I mean, hey, like, especially working in the downtown area, you know, they walk into a bar, they wouldn't expect someone of my race to be behind the bar.
Really?
So it's just like,
the
oh, well.
location of the bar.
Yes.
Downtown, they don't expect a black woman.
No.
Interesting.
No. So most, you know, most bars that you would go to, you would see someone who's Caucasian, mostly behind the bar. Sometimes it's Hispanics, but black people, not so much. So just walking into the bar and they see you here and they're like, oh, well, did you work here before so-and-so bought it? Or did you work here before this? And it's just like,
what do you mean by that?
yeah, that's what I want to say. Like, what do you mean by that? But I'm just like, no, I got hired just like everybody else.
Right. Are you finding that you have to, you know, keep the smile on because you are still providing a service and you still want tips at the end of the day?
Yes, I have to keep the smile on, and so it's like once they get to talking to me, get to know me, then they're like, oh, you're really nice. I'm just like, well, yeah, of course.
Were you expecting something else?
Were you expecting something else? And I feel like most of the times they are. They're like, oh, you know, it's the angry black person all the time. So it's just smiling. They're just like, oh, you're just not what I expected you to be. It's like, okay, well, come again.
Oh my God. I mean, at the end of the day for you, do you prefer an overt racist, or would you prefer someone to continue being microaggressive?
Sadly, I would prefer the racism. Just like they stated earlier, because I know that it's racism.
Right.
And you know that it's racism. It's not really a, oh, well, I think they said this. It's like, no, you said that and that's what you meant.
Right. I'm surprised you're not drinking behind the bar yourself.
Sometimes I want to, but I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna wait until I get off work. I'm just gonna smile and wave.
Smile and wave, smile and wave. But this looks amazing, so I know it doesn't affect your job.
Of course not, never. I'm gonna finish it off with
Cherry.
a cherry. Oh, I grabbed 2.
Oh, that's fine, I don't mind 2. It's my favorite, so two cherries is great.
And we're just gonna slide an orange slice on the side.
Okay, I'm excited. I just went through dry January, so this is great.
Give me your honest opinion.
Oh, that's strong. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I heard you like strong.
Oh, that's good. See, the reason that I love old fashions, you taste your liquor. Like, I don't need it to be like
all the extra sweet stuff in the mixer.
No, but the extra sweet stuff you did add to this just enhances the flavor. It doesn't take away from the bourbon. So, cheers, baby.
Cheers.
You nailed that.
Cheers.
All right, well, when we come back, we're gonna dive into how you address the microaggressions. We heard Arquella's version, we heard Alan's version, but how should we tackle microaggression? Stick around, we'll be right back.
Knock, knock. I'm looking for the owner of this home, the new owner. You're the owner? You're gonna be living here in this home? Okay. Yes, you're just not what I was expecting. I'm not saying that, because you're white. It's just this neighborhood is so traditional. I was just thinking the other day, what if a European American family moved here to this neighborhood? That would be so, that would be so neat. Anyway, I made you this meal. I'll just leave it here on the porch. It is seasoned. I don't know any ethnic recipes. I don't even think I have mayonnaise at the house, but you should try this. It was my grandmother's recipe. It's just an all-American dish. Okay, bye. Bye, old chap.
She didn't have mayonnaise. Oh, God. Okay, here to discuss this, we've got Gloria, who's joined us, and Alan, Arquella, and Ajibola. All right, so she flipped the racial discomfort. How do you feel about tackling it in that way?
That was hilarious.
There it was. So true.
It is a good way to flip the mirror and just like, hey, this is what you look like. This is what I feel like.
True.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it probably, maybe enlightened some people. May not be the best way to handle it on a day-to-day basis, but this is I feel like a good educational tool.
Yeah, definitely. It's truth talk, right? It's kind of like, as I said, flipping it. And so people need to see kind of like, here's what the foolishness looks and sounds like, right? And to address it.
But something like this at work, right? You experienced this from a fellow coworker. How do you address it in an appropriate manner?
Like I said earlier, really, first thing is just really asking for clarification and just really making sure you're comfortable enough to approach the coworker and have the conversation at the appropriate time, but asking for clarification. It may be, tell me what you meant by that comment, because when you said it, this is how it landed with me. This is how I felt. And so really want to have a conversation about that. So that's one way to look at it. Or another could be, we want to, again, think about what's the intent versus impact. Hey, you know what, when you said this, I'm not sure if you realize that this is how it came across. So I'm not sure if you meant it that way, but let's have a conversation about it.
Have any of you had to have a difficult or uncomfortable conversation?
No, definitely. I mean, for me, like, a lot of my experiences have been in like predominantly white institutions as a black man. So a lot of times people will say things, and they could be people who are your friends, who are from different cultures, and sometimes it took me a second to understand it, like, they grew up in a completely different setting than I did, and they may not even understand what they're saying. So I try to like come at it with that perspective and have those conversations and say, well, like, do you understand that like you may not understand why this is offensive because you haven't met anybody who had these experiences, but this is how it feels to me, and if like you're my friend, you should understand and value what I have to say. But at the same time, there are some people who you're either not comfortable with, you don't know well, or who don't really care about your feelings, and I think that's when it comes to like either, hey, I'm gonna just disengage and like have it to where you're not even a part of like what I'm doing or like what I'm trying to accomplish. And there might be moments where you might kind of actually get mad and like have to let somebody know about themselves. So I think it's definitely like very situational.
Yeah. It's definitely gonna depend on who you are. Yeah. Like what type of relationship we have, whether it's, you know, we're coworkers or whether we're friends, because some people are not always ready to receive what you're trying to give them.
Right.
You know, you could be ready to tell somebody, listen, what you did was not right, this, that, and the third. And if they're not in a place where they can receive that humbly and, you know, not as a dig to them, but just as a, you know, educational moment, then the conversation's not going to go anywhere anyway. So it's a complete waste of time.
Yeah. And Gloria, you're having to work for tips. You're having to smile.
Yes. Yes.
Do you ever find a moment in which you can actually address microaggression?
Yes. Sometimes people are open to receiving that. So, you know, the liquor kind of gets them like, okay, well, you know, well, did I say something wrong? So that's my opportunity to be like, hey, when you said this and when you did this, you could have said it a different way. Right. You know, there's always a different way that you can say something. And they'll be like, oh, well, thank you for telling me because I genuinely didn't know. Now I know from here on out, this is how I should say it, or I shouldn't even say this at all.
Right. And hopefully, I mean, that's what you want out of these conversations, right? Is for an enlightening moment for them to go in future interactions knowing what's not okay. A microaggression, whether it's micro or not, is not okay. It's still an aggression. And sometimes just overtly racist.
Yeah, my experience has been, it goes from microaggression and then it goes immediately into gaslighting. Because then once I call you on it, once I say, hey, that's not cool, then you say, what are you talking about? What do you mean? What are you saying? I didn't think of it that way. Or I would have never thought of it that way. But now is the moment not to defend yourself against what I'm saying, but to just accept it.
And apologize.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Apologize.
Exactly.
And I really do think that like a lot of the things that have happened in the last 2 years, especially like thinking about things like George Floyd and like all the actual conversations about race have changed people's openness to talking about these issues, because there are some things that like if you say them now, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, it might not have been a problem, but now it's like people are like, okay, how are the things that I'm saying affecting people who don't look like me? And I think that's important to like have those conversations so people don't have to like experience those things on a daily basis like we all have said that we do.
Yeah.
Right.
I think people are more open now to having the conversations, but at the end of the day, it's like we still have to give ourselves grace and forgiveness, right? Just because we are still trying to figure it out, because we are working to change our language and how we approach people and what we say and what we do. And so, yes, we do have to continue to have the conversations, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. All right, well, we'll continue the conversation right after this. Welcome back to the Nightcap. We've been talking about microaggressiveness and how you may not be aware that you're doing it and how it affects victims of it. Here to wrap this up, we've got Ajibola, Arquella, Alan, and Gloria. What do you want to say to people who are microaggressors?
I mean, it really just boils down to being aware, being self-aware, knowing that you have blind spots. Everybody has blind spots. And if someone addresses one of them to you, you know, your response shouldn't be defense. It should be openness.
Because I feel like people then carry a guilt, right? And so that's where the defense comes up. It's like, oh my God, I'm not that person, that's not me. But it's like, hey, that's how somebody else took it. Check yourself.
Right.
Be aware, and it's okay to grow from here.
Correct.
You don't have to double down on your defense.
Definitely. You know, this is a humanity thing, right? And so it's really just being aware of your own biases, as Alan has mentioned, but also just being aware and just being willing to commit to make a change, make a difference. Because again, as I said, it's a humanity thing.
And really like being okay knowing that your understanding of culture like isn't necessarily the same experience as someone else, and not to imprint your beliefs on somebody else without really having a conversation with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very important just to get to know the person that you're speaking with first, you know, get to know how are they as a person and not how you view them as a collective, because, you know, everybody doesn't take everything the same way, and just, you know, be willing to be like, okay, I'll change.
Right. Or apologize.
Or apologize.
You said during the break. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, if you are a microaggressor, there's a moment to change, to really learn from who you're engaging with. And it doesn't have to define you, just like you shouldn't be defining people by how you view society, right? Maybe you should learn a thing or two, just like I did, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Thank you guys so much for really coming on and being open about your experience with microaggression.
Thank you.
Well, cheers to y'all, and we'll see you guys next time here on the night. Cheers to you.